Hello and welcome to the Vintage and Classic Metalwork channel, and on this video I'm going to show you how to shrink metal. Now there's many ways to do this for different scenarios, and I'm going to run you through a few that I use in my day-to-day job. So we've got shrinking using a stump, we've got the Pull Max tools, we've got a shrinking disc, shrinking jaws, tucking fork, heat shrinking and shrinking hammers. So I'm going to show you a little bit on each and explain when you would use them, because you might have put too much shape into a panel or got distortion from welding a panel in, so there's a different way to do that. Or if you're forming a panel on an English wheel and you just want a bit of a hand to pull that panel over, there's different ways of shrinking to help you with that one as well. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, stay tuned, and I'll run you through all of these. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now is this foot operated shrinking machine. You can get a handheld version of it, but we've invested in the foot operated version because that way if you're shrinking on a panel it frees up your hands and we get a lot more use out of this. What it's going to do when I put my foot down is pull the jaws together, and that way it grips hold of the metal, pulls it together, thus creating basically a thicker edge as the metal is being pulled together. You'll see this as I demonstrate now. So very little pressure being used there, and it's pulled that very easily round. It will make this edge slightly thicker, as I've said, because the metal's got to go somewhere, so it clumps up. So you do have these little ridges, but you can dress this out after. Very handy tool for the workshop. We're forever using it, and I highly recommend a shrinking machine like this in your workshop, even if it's a handheld version. You'll get loads of use out of it. Okay, so another use for this machine is on a panel like this. I want to bring these edges round and pop that shape up a bit. So as you can see, that's brought that up. So if that was on a corner of a roof, that'd be really handy. Then what I'll do is take it over to the English wheel now and wheel that out, and you can see the effect it has. Okay, so onto the shrinking disc. This does look like a medieval torture device, but it's actually a very effective tool. Now, I saw a video on YouTube, I don't know if it was Racheline's video, I think it was, and I thought, wow, that's an amazing piece of equipment. I didn't buy one, I copied and made my own. Now, I don't recommend that to the home novice. Go out and buy one just for safety purposes, because when that's spinning round you don't want any mishaps, but I'm trusting my own judgment on this one. And how it works, or how I perceive it to work, is when you've got an uneven panel and you're running this over the top of it, it then touches the high spots. They then expand in the heat, and then when you get your cold rag, which I'm going to show you, and put over the top, it then quenches that and shrinks, and you'll always shrink more than what it was originally. So effectively, each pass you do and quench it, it then gets smaller and smaller and tighter, and then it becomes an even surface. So that's my aim with this video, to show you how to do that, and hopefully we get a good result at the end. Fingers crossed. And yeah, a bit noisy this one. Okay, so I'm going to show you on this 0.9 thick mild steel piece. I've got a 10mm high and a 5mm high on here,
and my aim is to make that one continuous smooth panel. And what I'm doing now is gently applying a bit of pressure to the grinder, working all over that panel. It's probably going to take around 15 seconds or so to get that panel up to temperature, and when it is, I'm then going to stop and then apply the rag. As you can see here, it's definitely up to temperature because the steam's coming off that panel. Just keep going over and over the top, cool it right down, and then I'm going to repeat that process. Keep checking it, and hopefully we'll have a smooth panel by the end of it.
Okay, so that's the result of the shrinking disc. If you can remember back, I had a huge high here, a low, and then another high, and with probably about 5 minutes on the shrinking disc, just working that area, keep going over, keep cooling it down with a cold rag, very important. You can use an air blower as well, but I like the wet rag technique, that's personally my favourite. And yeah, I'm very happy with the result. Nice even finish. I could take this further, but for demonstration purposes it's not really much point. You get the gist of what I'm trying to achieve here. And if I just bring it over into the light, hopefully I can pick up a reflection. That is, well, it's worked wonders really to get rid of that huge 10mm high that I had there, and probably about, I don't know, 5 or 6mm high there, and just make that one even radius is very impressive. And that's why it's a very handy tool if you're welding panels together and it peaks up. You can really shrink that and get rid of it, and trying to blend two panels together. So definitely recommended. It is a little bit sketchy, bit noisy, bit daunting at first, but that's why I recommend going out and buying a decent one, and not a homemade one like mine. Even though it does work, but I wouldn't recommend it for safety purposes. Just go out and buy one. And yeah, fantastic tool that I'm always going to use, hopefully. Okay, moving on to the Pull Max dies. Again, another way of shrinking metal that I saw on YouTube. And when I first saw it, I just couldn't get my head around it, how it worked. Because first of all, it stretches the material beyond belief, like puts this huge ridge through the material, and then as you put it back, the flats of these dies, I'm going to just bring them over and show you. There. The flats then squash that material, pulling it together. So whoever came up with this way, absolutely fantastic. And we use this way for shrinking large panels. So I'll do a bit of a display now so you can see what I'm on about. Okay, moving on to the oxyacetylene heat shrinking way. Now this is an old school method, still widely used today. I do every now and again find myself in a position where I do have to use it, so it's good to keep your hand into it. It's one of them processes, if not done correctly, you can turn a small area that you're trying to shrink into a huge area, and it can very quickly get away from you and even destroy the area that you're working on. A lot of people try and use like a butane mix like this. Again, that isn't concentrated enough to do a little local area and will cause more damage to your panel. So with this, with a very fine end, I think I'm using like a number 2 nozzle, we're going to get a 5 to 8 mil cherry. That area then expands due to the heat. We're then going to take the heat away, dress around in a circular motion, pulling that metal in, and then we're then going to quench it with a cold rag, and it's going to pull it tight, shrinking that area. So that's how I perceive it to work, and I get good results from it sometimes, well, most of the time. And yeah, so I'm going to show you that way now, and yeah, hopefully you enjoy it.
Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate on this. This is mild steel bodywork thickness at 0.9. As you can see, it's got loads of excess shape into it. We call this oil canning, and it's an absolute nightmare to get rid of, so this is the way that I'm going to attempt to do it.
Okay, moving on to the tucking fork. Now this is just a homemade tucking fork I've made. 2 rods welded together with a bit of an access there to put your panel in. Now I don't use this very often, but it does have its place within the shrinking tools that I've got. What we're going to do is similar to this. Now this was very easy on the shrinking machine, as you saw in the video, but I'm going to do something similar, probably not that much, but I'm going to attempt to pull this round using the tucking fork. Now what we're going to do is use that to create peaks in the metal, and then we're just going to tap it in a way, and I'll explain that as I'm doing it, and we're going to form our own peaks, and hopefully that way it's going to pull the metal in. So yeah, I'll show you that now, and hopefully it works. So as you can see, it started to pull it round. So what we need to do is hammer these down now and just keep repeating that process. What I'm doing is just sealing the end there to hopefully keep that pulled in, and I'm just going to chase it down the middle of that peak. Okay, so it started straightening out as I expect it to. So I'm then going to put a couple more in and just keep pulling it in. Okay, so after a couple of minutes of doing them tucks, I've got quite a decent little radius on there. And if you need to shape a panel like this and you haven't got a shrinking tool at home, then you can make this very easy. Just 2 bars welded together, tapered end, and you can then start shrinking the edges of your panels like so. So just try and keep it straight along the back. That will be a little bit thicker now to what it originally was, because we're clumping all that metal together. But the more you dress this out there and hammer that flat, it will stretch that metal back out. So you've got to be careful on how hard you do actually hit the material. But for a quick demonstration purpose, you can see how effective it is, and a very cool little tool. Okay, moving on to the tree stump and the bossing mallet. The tree stump has got a divot in, as you can see, and what we're going to do on our body panels is along the edge we're going to create larger tucks, just like we did with the fork. It's basically exactly the same process, but on a larger scale. So if we've got a body panel and we want to shrink them edges in, we're going to use this divot here. It's not a pretty process, but it is effective. So we're going to get that metal moving and held in place, and then we're going to transfer that onto the English wheel, and it will then dress out, and it's going to be held in place by these tucks that we put in earlier in the process. So very effective way of doing it, a very old school way. You don't see this being done very often now, as it's been replaced with many other ways, just like the shrinking machine I showed you in the earlier process. Right, I'll crack on and show you how to do it now. So what I don't want to do is run my edge through the English wheel, because that's only going to stretch and undo the tension that I've put in there. So I want to get up around this area here where it's added the shape and pulled it in, as you can see across the top. It's pulled it in. So yeah, I just want to run the wheel through there, but not touching this edge, otherwise it's going to ping back out the other way. Okay, so as you can see there, that edge is stayed tight, and we've stretched this section out here. So the tucks are holding that in place. And to be effective on a panel like this, I would have to add more tucks in that would pop that panel out, but I've only done a few along there. Ideally, you would need a deeper hollow on your tree stump to then create deeper tucks and so forth. But just for demonstration purposes, hopefully you get the gist of what I'm trying to show you. So it's holding it in place like so, and then it allows you to stretch this area out here, thus creating basically a popped up section. So that's how tuck shrinking on a tree stump works. The trusty shrinking hammer, do they work? That's the million-dollar question. I don't use these, and I know many people that reface their hammer, even chop the end off, as they cause more damage than good. But I'm led to believe they do have a place in crash repair. Now, I don't have any experience in crash repair. I'm only going by what I've been told from people that I've worked with over the years. Now, when your wing is involved in a crash, say, and it stretches and you pull that damage out, the metal's then stretched. And to create a bit of tension and get rid of that stretching process, if you have a shrinking dolly and a shrinking hammer with the faces on them, basically it pushes that excess metal into them grooves and then creates tension that way. They do create a lot of mess, but if you've got a filler that area, then it's not really much of a problem. Again, I don't use these. I'm going to give you a bit of a demonstration on them and show you what they're like to use, but that's completely up to you if you want to use them moving further on. And yeah, I'm sure they do have their place and people are very good with them, just not me. So this is my damaged wing on a car, say, and I've got no other way of gaining access. I can't take the panel off, so I then get my shrinking block and shrinking hammer there, and I've put my hand underneath the arch, and what I'm then going to do is just okay, so that's the panel done. It's got a lot of the creases out, and it's created a lot of tension. Now I'm pressing down quite hard on that panel, and it's withstanding that. So you can see how, when these two come together, it does work. It does create a lot of marks, but that is the downside to it. But you can linish these off and fill over the top. So you have a process there that may get you out of trouble in the future if you need it for very little money. Okay, so we've made it to the end of the video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it and you've learned a few new tricks and tips along the way. This is something I've wanted to put together for quite some time and just show you the different processes out there. Now, there are videos on YouTube that do specialize in each individual process. So if you want to learn a process a bit more in depth, the source is out there if you want to go and look it up, which I highly recommend. That's how I've learned along the years, and yeah, this video is just to give you a brief description and overview of a couple of the processes that you may not be aware of. Yeah, so thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Give us a thumbs up. The support that we're getting at the moment is fantastic, and we can't wait to make more videos. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.